Hi, everyone. I'm Sava Marinkovich, and welcome to another episode of HTEC Today. Today, we're diving into a topic that's rapidly reshaping the retail landscape, the role of computer vision in physical stores and how it's transforming them into really intelligent, data-driven environments. I'm joined today by Joe Serrano, Senior Retail Consultant at HTEC, and our Senior HTEC Advisor in Retail, Arnon Kraft. And together, we'll be discussing where computer vision is really driving business impact, what's still hype, what are some of the main implementation challenges, and then what retailers are doing to scale successfully. So let's get started. So with that, retail, as many people know, is becoming increasingly intelligent and data-driven. It's always been that way online, and now it's moving into the physical store space. And while AI has long driven like recommendations and forecasting and optimization on the digital side, it's computer vision that's now bringing a similar level of insight to the store floor. So to my guests today, I want to just open up and ask about, do you think physical retail is catching up with e-commerce? Is it caught up? Is it different? So let me start that off with Joe.
Well, I mean, physical retail, I think we've gone through these platform shifts before, right? Everybody thought that physical retail was going to be put out of business when the internet came around. That certainly did not happen. How many years ago did Amazon Go also announce their first store, that they were going to roll out thousands of these stores, and now they've backed off from that. That was going to be heavily driven by, cameras and just walk out technology. That shifted a little bit, but I think stores are always going to be a part of it. I think we're hunters and gatherers at heart, and it's the social piece of it. In addition to, you can have as much agentic commerce trying to help you curate what you're going to buy, but ultimately you're going to want to go to the store for having it more quickly, to be able to discover what's new. So I think it's got the physical store is going to be surviving a long time. 80% of sales are still happening in a physical store versus e-commerce.
That's a great point. On Amazon's topic, they removed their just walkout technology, right? I think in 2024. So, I mean, is that a pullback, or is that kind of like that? Was that a test that didn't work well? Like what? How do we interpret Amazon's kind of, some people are calling it a retreat?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take first of that, and then maybe Arnon, you've got some thoughts on that too. But certainly, what I love about Amazon is they test and learn, and they'll even test competing concepts at the same time. This test, they probably got a lot of learnings from it. I think they're still selling just walkout technology itself. Maybe they've backed off from the actual Amazon Go stores. They've announced they're opening up an entire big box location that's going to be bigger than maybe even a Walmart, I understand, in 2027 in Chicago. So are they going to take some of what they learned and put it in the big box store? My guess is going to be, probably will be testing some of that in store. I'm sure it's going to have a heavy duty dose of computer vision based on what I'm seeing in the industry and why we're going to do that. And I think there's a lot of advantages of that, not just for Amazon, but any other store that is looking at moving into the AI space. But I think Amazon has got some learnings from it. They're shutting down what doesn't work, and they're going to make it evolve into what is going to work. And I think that's what I like about Amazon.
Thanks, Joe. Arnon, what do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that just the fact that people call it, failure because they're pulling back, to me is missing the point. They were the first to launch self-checkout stores with Amazon Go. And I can only imagine the learnings they had from that. And they're not the only ones, right? I think even as early as late 2023, there was an article by Professor Arnon from Wharton University. He talks about how Walmart is pulling back self-checkout. And I think those experiments, and I love the term experiments, when you experiment with new technology, I think by definition, by design, you can argue which percentage, but a substantial percentage of those experiments not to work out from the get-go, and pulling back and reshaping what that solution looks like and how to use it, I think is incredible, and the value of it is going to be incredible for them. And I think retail is at an inflection point. It's not the only industry, obviously, right now with everything going on with AI that's at an inflection point. But for years, we have treated, physical stores like a black box. We knew what was sold, but nobody really had any idea what actually happens inside those four walls. Computer vision changes that, not just at the point of sale in terms of self-checkout. It really turns the store from a blind spot that it used to be in the past into a data engine, and data is the name of the game. But I think the challenging, or I would even say uncomfortable part, is that visibility alone, seeing what's happening, doesn't create value or enough value. So if computer vision is just more cameras and dashboards that nobody is looking at, we're missing the point. The real opportunity, and it's not free of challenge, but it's an opportunity, is how do you turn that vision into action? How do you, we can talk about it later in more depth. How do you reduce shrink? How do you eliminate friction? Fundamentally, how do you change, how the physical retail store operates? And I think that's the connection that is needed between the data to actually operationalizing the actions to actually do with that data.
That's super interesting. I think I'd like to unpack a couple of these things, but the first one is Amazon was first into space. How much is it valuable to be first into space versus a fast follower? Like, where do you innovate on these? I mean, how do you consider being the first to apply things, or is there enough low-hanging fruit to just adopt in a retail setting?
Yeah, the technology is always changing, and I think it's moving quickly. If you actually look at the history of where AI itself started having the biggest breakthroughs, it actually was computer vision. To move from like a 40% accuracy to 91% accuracy of what it's identifying with a high level of confidence is sort of where AI sort of had its first sort of sets of breakthroughs. And I think you can actually use that as maybe a good rubric as you're looking at how am I going to use AI and writ large as a retailer itself. I always like the maturity model of autonomous driving. You got your level one's always the level 5. Level 1 is like, what are we doing just to collect data itself and have it in a usable fashion. All the way to level 5 might be a fully autonomous store that's doing autonomous replenishment. It's doing predictive allocations. It's looking end to end throughout your entire store and being the eyes of it, just as computer vision is for autonomous driving vehicles. It's not going to be unlike that. It's a little behind autonomous driving vehicles, but I think it's a good place to start. And again, data is going to be the biggest piece of that. But I think one of the biggest bottlenecks is probably going to be just what kind of cameras do you have. You could probably retrofit or use your existing cameras 40% of the time based on what I've seen out there in the industry, and you might have to retrofit some of those to get it to a point where it's more usable and you have the clarity, you have the maybe it's an edge network or you're doing it on-prem in some fashion to make the action layer possible. But I think we're really moving into a time now where we can use what's existing a lot more technologies are making that possible. So I think computer vision, just building the foundations for that for your store, start you down the path of like a good place to start in AI in a lot of different ways for retailers, in my opinion.